Thanks for tuning into today's podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our new remote training here at RPP. We've been offering remote training for quite some time, but we always required the athlete to come in-house for an assessment. Now we can do the whole assessment online and bring all of our services, pitching, hitting, and strength training to your doorstep. So, if you like what we do and how we do it, go to our website at rocklandpeakperformance.com and click on Remote Training in the toolbar. Thanks. The Behind the Seams podcast. I'm your host, Nunzio Signore, looking to bring you great dialogue with some of the best in the world of player development. The world of training baseball players has changed dramatically during the past few years, and I'm looking forward to shedding some light here on what's the latest, what's the best, and what's really happening in the world of player development. Thanks for joining me for the ride. Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the Behind the Seams podcast. My guest today is Josh Epstein, pitching coach at the University of Richmond in Virginia. I first met Josh when he was the pitching coach at Monmouth University in New Jersey. In total, Josh has over 14 years of collegiate coaching experience. He has previous stops at Lincoln Memorial, Bloomsburg, and Ramapo College. In his 3 seasons at Monmouth, the Hawks finished second in ERA and in his conference, including an overall 3.2 team ERA after his 2021 campaign. He's a native of Cleveland, graduating from Ramapo College in 2006 with a business marketing degree. He played all 4 seasons with the Roadrunners, being named captain as a senior. And he's also one of the more forward-thinking coaches, I might add, I've come across, always eager to improve his craft. What's up, Josh? Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Nunzio. This is awesome. Anytime I get a chance to break it down with you, I'll try to take advantage of it. So thank you.
Were you impressed about how much I knew about you?
Yeah. I mean, it's humbling, right? You talk about a little bit in the recruiting pitch to kids, but to hear somebody else say it's interesting.
I'm looking at your view right now out of your back door there, and it makes me relax. It makes me a little envious. Josh just recently moved down south to Virginia for his gig at Richmond and moved from Monmouth, which is also a beautiful place. But, I'm here in Paramus and I'm looking at his backyard, and I'm going to be down there sometime this summer, and we're going to go out.
No doubt.
Tell us a little bit about this whole journey and how it started for you.
Yeah, well, first of all, Richmond's awesome. It's unbelievable area, but getting here has certainly been interesting. Grew up, like you said, in Cleveland, Ohio. I didn't start playing baseball, organized baseball, until middle school, which I know is super late, especially these days. Played middle school ball, and thankfully they had a no cut policy in 7th grade because I would have been the first one axed. Got better, got better, got 3 at-bats that year, and didn't pitch at all. And then did okay and started a little bit in my 8th grade year, and that kind of springboarded me into high school ball and everything, but never was really recruited heavily or really at all. Did go to baseball camp. I had family in Long Island. My mom and grandparents lived there, and went to a baseball camp there, and Rich Martin ended up getting the head coaching job at Ramapo, who ran the camp my senior year of high school, and invited me to come. And that was awesome. It was a great experience there. Again, wasn't very good and made the transition to pitcher. My second year, we needed some arms down in Florida, and I did a little bit in high school. And I did okay. And the next day I'm in the batting cage taking BP, and he comes into the cage and, in some more colorful language than I'm about to say, asked me what I was doing in there. He said, taking batting practice. He said,
what a way to motivate a kid.
Yeah. He said, get out of there. You're a pitcher now. And so that was really the start of it. And again, wasn't great. So really need to figure out how this all worked, and not on my own because the coaches were good, but ended up figuring some things out, throwing strikes. It didn't come easy, but there was a moment where everything clicked in practice one night. And that's really the foundation of what I was as a pitcher and how I coach guys in pitching. Graduated and jumped into a finance job that was okay, actually in Paramus too. And we had an unseasonably warm February, and I kept staring out out the window, and it was like, man, I should be playing baseball right now, and this is brutal. And then was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to play overseas. And that was
Where was that? Where was that?
In Israel.
Okay.
First year of this Israel Baseball League, which was an amazing experience, playing in the professional league out there. The people that I met were unbelievable. The talent range was super wide, and just playing with guys who played year round, didn't have a home. They just played in different leagues in the world, all over the world, which was awesome.
I also think that it's great outside of the sporting arena, and just not to mention traveling is just so great for expanding your mind and just being around a different culture, whether you were there to play baseball or not. Just spending that time there is, I tell my daughter all the time, she just spent 3 months in Italy, and I'm like, you know what? She came back, she was so much more mature from just experiencing that. So that's great.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And just, again, just, I had no idea the international ball thing. And there are guys that literally don't have a home. And in our winter, they'll go play in Australia, and then they'll go to the Czech, they'll go to Belgium, they'll go to Germany, they'll go anywhere and just play and see the world that way. And it's an amazing experience, amazing talking to those people. And honestly, I know we're going to dive into it, but one of the catalysts that set me off on this, like, kind of trying to learn everything possible about how to train myself and then ultimately with pitchers happened there when my teammates was actually a biomechanics guy. He was at the University of Buffalo at the time coaching, but also played. And he was the one that told me more of a sprint-based thing for baseball players as opposed to long distance
running. Yeah.
So that was new to me, and that I'm very fortunate. And then came back to the States and started coaching at Ramapo. Was offered a job there, and just did everything I possibly could on the coaching staff, and then eventually elevated to the pitching guy, and then had the opportunity to get a master's and move on to Bloomsburg 6 years later. And unbelievable experience there. The head coach and I are really good friends to this day. And when I finished there, was again fortunate to go to Lincoln Memorial in Tennessee. And
he's a really good guy, man. Like a lot of the Bloomsburg guys come here, and they all have great things to say about him. And also they come loaded and ready to work.
Unbelievable guy, like just one of my favorite people on this planet. So warm, welcoming, ready to teach at any given moment. Great advice. Was when you graduate there, and the way it works there, at least at the time, the only compensated assistant coach was graduate assistant pitching coach. So it rolls over every 2 years. And when I was done, man, the way he advocated for me and was really trying to help me get a job, in the baseball world and everything, could not be, he couldn't have done any more, and I could not be more grateful. Right. Literally, I got wind that the Lincoln Memorial job came open, and he was like, "Oh man, Jeff Six Eyes, the head coach there. I'll give him a ring right now." And literally at like 8 o'clock at night, called him up, and that worked out. And again, could not have landed in a better spot. That was a culture shock in a good way for me, getting into the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, and learning again from a tremendous head coach. It was a great experience, and we had some great times there, and then had my first child, and my wife is from the Northeast, and was really homesick. And again, Monmouth job opened, and one thing led to another, and another great move to the Jersey Shore.
For anybody who doesn't know anything, Monmouth is like right on the beach. It's like going to college on the beach.
It literally is. There's housing. Literally, you open the door onto the sand. Main campus is like a mile and a half from the beach. It's beautiful, unbelievable, and had a great time there. Really, honestly, really difficult to leave there. but the Richmond job was always something that I was really interested in. The recruiting coordinator here, Nate Mulberg, is one of my great friends for over a decade, I think. And when he reached out and said that this might be an option, it was immediately of interest to me and my family, and came down this past August. And definite learning curve, super high academic school, a little bit different, but the facilities are unbelievable. The support is unbelievable. Our coaching staff is unbelievable. And we had a really good first season as far as growth and development and learning. And we had a super young team that ultimately fell short in the conference championship game to VCU, who was one of the hottest teams in the country at the time. But we got a great group coming back, and I couldn't be happier.
Great, man. You spent some time as a coach in various parts of the country, like we're talking about, from Tennessee, New Jersey to Virginia. It's fair to say you've seen talent from all over. Can you provide any comparisons in the caliber of prospects that you're seeing in different parts of the country?
Really good question. And obviously it's a hot topic, right? Because, everybody thinks the South, warm weather places are better at baseball. For me, the caliber of talent, the raw talent, I think is comparable individually. Overall, there's more depth of people playing baseball in the South, I think, and playing more year round. So
one of my questions was the difference between Tennessee and Virginia weather-wise is kind of pretty big, right? As far as warmth, do you find even in Virginia, guys are playing baseball more year-round than they did in New Jersey? I mean, New Jersey is seasonal, but
yeah,
you're only 4 hours down the turnpike, aren't you?
yeah. And with the advent of turf fields, right? I think people are playing more in February in New Jersey. Everybody's plowing them off. I think the amount of organized games kids play in the South is just significantly higher. And I think that manifests itself in the competitive, or could anyways, in the competitive nature of kids in the South. And I think that's one of the bigger differences, because they face more competition. And I think hitters, the more hitters see live pitching, the more their Rolodex grows in their head of seeing actual pitches, which makes them better hitters, which now the pitchers have to go and figure out how to get these hitters out. And so the cycle goes.
Right.
But as far as overall
survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest.
To a point for sure. And then, like, the farther south you go, the more that happens. Now, I think it cuts both ways, because you can get a little I don't want to say hardened. It's not hardened. Blind to the competitive aspect of it. It turns into monotonous baseball. Whereas in the North, Northeast, it's like, oh man, like we really have to make the most of this opportunity. Let's go. So I think it cuts both ways. And with facilities like yours and some of the other great ones in cold weather climates, I think the development of talent is just off the charts now. There are so many good players now from everywhere.
But I think like I saw a recent listing of 2021 MLB players by college. Clearly the South and the West dominate the MLB.
Yeah.
You think that this is due to weather? You think it's, the shorter season in the North? You think this has a lot to do with these kids being more ready to get drafted?
I think, yeah, more ready to get drafted. And I'm not in that seat as a scout or a professional talent evaluator, but you don't want to miss, right? You always want to minimize your misses. It's not the ones that you don't get. It's the ones that you do that can't play, that kill you.
Right.
So if you're evaluating for a hitter per se, right, and he has 60 at-bats in the high school season in New Jersey versus a hitter who, and so you over 4 years, right? If he plays varsity for 4 years, he'll have 240 at-bats maybe, right? And that same level kid in Florida might have, they're going to play 40 games in the high school season, if they go pretty far now, and they're doing it against better competition because of what we just talked about. So It's a little bit of a safer situation.
Yeah. Higher level and more volume.
Yeah, I think the volume thing is huge. And it's also, this might come off wrong, because there are a lot of great people in the Northeast and North that care about baseball and do a great job. But if you go south, the facility, just the average facility is better. People love baseball in the South. Average humans who don't have any vested interest love baseball in the South.
So do you think, being further down south right now, do you think that sometimes, in a way, though, it gives the Northeast guys who don't have so much mileage on their arms as far as a pitcher? If you're looking at two guys that have, similar velocity and similar talent, and one guy's got way more miles on his arm, and then you get a Northeast guy with the same kind of, he's in that ballpark, but he's got way less miles on his arm. I would think that this is a better purchase, kind of like you're not getting a car with less miles on it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing for sure. And I'm sure we'll dive into it. But as you know, tall, skinny kid that's got a lot of miles on his arm.
Uh-oh.
That's scary. Yeah. So
great.
Tall, skinny kid that doesn't, now you're working with something. So I think there's definitely advantages for sure.
Can you break down for me some things you look for when you go looking for prospects? How do you evaluate them? What traits do you look for? Is there a ranking for you? For example, pitching mechanics, velocity, ball movement, personality, athleticism, size. What kind of give me like, Josh Epstein's checkpoint off of your clipboard when you're like, going down to see a guy.
Yeah, man, this there are a lot of rabbit holes here, and I'm definitely recruiting nerd guy and always trying to figure out how to do it better. I think where I'm at right now is there's the velocity and the actual metrics and what we're looking for. There's a lot of that out there, right? So it's kind of like a bell curve where the majority of your guys, the guys that we're going after and this like schools are going after, they're all somewhat similar, right? They have to have enough velocity. We can't take a guy going 65 miles an hour on his fastball and expect to win that with that guy, but hard enough. And so now you go hard enough. Now, what else is there? Is he mechanically, is he good enough, right? Because just as Randy Sullivan talks about, right, and a lot of people, you don't have that whole idea of exactly repeatable mechanics is a bit of a fallacy. I definitely buy into that. But is he athletic enough to get the ball out on time, right? And that will manifest itself in his command of the baseball, right? So there are specific things that we look for in game. We're not going to recruit just off of a showcase or a bullpen video. You can't do that. Definitely look at body type. And again, like the tall, skinny guy that throws well is super intriguing. And, you can dream on a guy like that and get him in the weight room and so on and so forth. But nowadays, there are so many places like yours and high school weight rooms that you also have to wonder why he hasn't put on weight yet. And so you have to dive deep into that. So personality and quote unquote makeup go into it for sure. And one of the best, maybe the best pitcher I've ever had was that tall, skinny lefty that couldn't gain weight, came into college at 6'3", 155.
Wow.
And he couldn't gain weight because he was allergic to corn. And so that was a struggle for him. We'd have the guys over at our house for a couple of times in the fall. My wife would cook and whatever, and he'd always have to bring his own snacks just in case. And of course, we had food for him, but it was a bad deal when he would have corn or corn products. So you have to wonder why in those situations and dive deep with the player, his coach, and so on. And so, yeah, I think just the velocity and stuff will open the door or get you in the spot that we want to start talking. But there's a lot more that goes into it.
So let me ask you a question. As far as for these parents that are out here listening, I have a lot of parents that it starts to get a little late and they're getting paranoid, and their kid just threw a lot of innings this season, and now they're going to go have them out and they're going to have them play every showcase there is this summer. and his velocity is down because he hasn't worked out. All he's done is play, play, play. And now it's time in the summertime, maybe for him to take a little bit of a break and select some later ones, maybe in October or something. And they just, some of these people are just slaves to go and try to show their kid to everybody. And I try to explain to them, listen, man, you may be going right now and showcasing your kid off the list. So make sure, you know, what I just heard from you is you take athleticism, you know, a lot of athleticism into account, even though you may have guys who were lighter and tend to be great guys. You do take athleticism into account. I personally feel also an athletic kid exudes confidence when you look at him. And I think sometimes that can give an immediate reaction, correct me if I'm wrong, to a coach. When you see a kid with his shoulders back upright and he just looks like a physical specimen, this immediately makes you want to root for this guy, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's not me that wants to root for him. It's the guys behind him in the field. Right. And that mound presence idea and that projecting confidence idea, I can't tell you when you see a kid walking in the hall, he's going to the weight room or going to the trainer or wherever, and he's looking down, immediately, like, dude, get your eyes up.
Yeah.
You got to look where you're going. You got to project confidence, because that manifests on the mound, and it's a dogfight out there, right? Like, you need every edge that you could get. And if you're withering away and you're downtrodden, you're looking down, you're not projecting confidence, well, the guy in the batter's box trying to hurt your feelings, and he will take advantage of that.
And now you have to add into account also that you're going to college, you're playing a little bit bigger of a platform, and now there's actually probably more people watching you as well.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I just feel like I watch my guys and I watch the kids come in here and I watch them get more and more confident as they get older, as they get stronger. And I just see such a difference in them that it can only help matters when you're standing in front of somebody who has never met you before and you've got a couple hours to impress this guy. I think physical presence can go a long way and help, help prop you up a little bit in front of a coach.
Definitely.
Great.
Without doubt.
Another thing that I think is so unique about you, this is my favorite part about you actually, is how much you study and know about performance training. I know you may not think you know a lot, but I speak to a lot of coaches who call about the things you call about, and we'll talk about some of those things. And you, over the years, I have just seen you really, really embrace performance training. I find it hard to believe that more pitching coaches don't try to learn more instead of just handing it over entirely to the strength department. When did you have that aha moment that this was a valuable piece of the puzzle for you, and it was something that maybe you thought you were going to, you realized would just be another piece of ammo in your pocket?
Yeah, well, first of all, definitely imposter syndrome over here for sure. There's so many good people out there. And anyways, a couple of moments for sure. I mentioned earlier when I was in Israel and switched to just me personally, instead of going and running poles, I was running sprints. And then I felt better. And I had never heard that before. And I was like, man, what else can you tell me? And we dived into it. And this dude that I was talking to, he's like one of the biggest guys I've ever met. And he could really swing the bat. He could really hit. And I was like, man, like, there's got to be something to that. So then come back, start coaching. And a couple of moments. So number one, actually, so there was a pitcher that we had from Paramus, PJ Soretto, who was a little bit of an afterthought recruiting wise out of high school. One of the best kids ever. He was just a big kind of bad body kid, last kid to make the team. He was like 82, 85 as a freshman. And then it bit him. He turned into a maniac in the weight room. Like, he was benching 120-pound dumbbells. He was like sprinting beyond belief. Like, he was crazy. And fast forward, he becomes one of the best pitchers in Division III. He was drafted by the Reds and was like tremendous player. And so then like those two guys is like, now that whole pitchers can't bench thing is out the window, because I just watched a kid gain 13 miles an hour on his fastball. He was up to 95 as a senior. while getting stronger in the chest, right? So that was one.
Absolutely.
And then two, just as a team. So in 2011, we got good finally, and we won 30 games. We went into the conference tournament, and we didn't put a huge emphasis on the weight room in 2011. And we went 2-0 in the conference tournament, 2-0 in the regional tournament, and we were gassed. And so when we evaluated what happened that year, we're like, next year we need to place a huge emphasis on the weight room. Like, we can't run out of gas at the end of the year. And we did that. And we ended up losing in the NJAC championship game and then the Mid-Atlantic regional championship game. We went as far as we could possibly go without going to the World Series. We played a number of games wise, and we were strong. We just ran into a better team in both, in Kane University. Actually.
But it does, but that strength allows you to go deeper into the season.
Oh, absolutely. And play better and all. And we didn't have a strength coach or anything. And so the hitting coach and myself, like, we were the guys that were putting the programming together. And it wasn't very good programming or anything, but at that point, anything was better than nothing, right?
And then you were interested in doing it was going to make it better than nothing.
Right. And then looking at Cressy and really diving into like anything that was online, and then finding out about Pitchapalooza and going there for the first time in 2000. I believe I went in the fall of 14 for the first time. And that was unbelievable. That was like insane, the amount of stuff that you could learn. And I just went down that road, and you could just see it. And not everything works for everybody, obviously, but just so many ideas out there and so many different ways to go about it. And
Pitchapalooza, for you guys who don't know, is just like a smorgasbord of great talent and people interested in getting better. And I've been speaking at it for, I think it's was my 4th year in a row or 3rd year. There was a break for COVID, but every time I go down there, not only do I love speaking to everybody, I make great connections and I learn a lot myself. Just being down there, I think that's where I met you, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Battleground Academy, Nashville.
Yeah, that's, isn't that, I mean, we go to this high school that's got a better facility than most universities. It's pretty amazing. I think it's in Franklin, Tennessee.
Yep.
And it's an amazing place. But go ahead. So yeah, so you went down to Pitchapalooza, you started expanding your knowledge about things to do. And
yeah, and then, just working for head coaches that allow me the latitude to implement some of these things. Because a little bit, especially to the old school guys, is crazy, right? And when our head coach at University of Richmond is a former big leaguer. He was on the '88 Dodgers World Series team and managed in the minor leagues forever. He's awesome, right? But man, he doesn't know a water bag from a water bottle, right? Like, it's pretty wild that he allows me to do this stuff. But again, not everybody's going to benefit from everything, but when you see these things actually make a difference. And when you talk about a kid that projects himself, a little more physical kid that projects himself, but also when you see a kid in the weight room and with some of the medicine ball stuff and some of the jumping stuff and all of a sudden start to be able to stabilize himself. Now, not only subconsciously does his body know that he's better off, but he consciously knows, okay, man, I just did that 3 months ago. I couldn't do anything remotely close to that, right? I couldn't get myself into that position before. Now that unlocks his brain and his creativity to be like, well, maybe I could do, like, I can do this on the mound now.
And I think that what you're kind of saying in a nutshell is it enhances their ability to organize themselves. You know what I mean? Strength and stability allows them to organize themselves. And you know better than anybody, not every mound is the same. Not every situation is the same. Some mounds are just crap. Some are beautiful. Some are steeper. And, you're not going to be able to, like you said, you may go through your same mechanics. You may be able to repeat your mechanics off the same mound pretty well. But when you're dealing with different variables and different environments and different issues, and you have to be able to reorganize. And I think strength comes into play with that. That's part of the dynamic systems, that Franz Bosch talks about, as far as getting your guys, when you're talking about water bags and giving them unstable environments. That strength training goes a long way for them to be able to, not be shooting a cannon from a canoe, like I always say, or like trying to throw long toss off a raft. You know what I mean? That instability makes it. So my question is, you come in here and you have great. The next thing we're going to talk about is a thing that I've watched you embrace, and I want you to talk about how it's changed for you and your athletes. But when you come in with all these different concepts that you learn about from Palooza, from reading, from calling me, from whatever, do you ever get any pushback from the strength coaches, feeling like maybe you're doing their job, or are they for the most part always really open to? I mean, because I can imagine these guys deal with pitching coaches pretty much that, okay, dude, you're the strength coach, you're involved in this, but you're bringing some pretty advanced concepts to the weight room that I can honestly tell you, I deal with strength coaches all the time. And some of the concepts you're bringing that I know of, because I've given them to you, are far more advanced than what even these guys are seeing. And these are young guys. And I'm just wondering, there has to be a little bit of ego involved. Are they pretty much, for the most part, are they pretty open? How do they embrace a pitching coach coming in and talking about strength training techniques?
Yeah. I've been fortunate to work with some guys who have dealt with baseball players and overhead throwing athletes. And so that helps for sure, but it's just like any relationship, I think. I need to take an interest in what they're doing and learn why they're doing what they're doing, right? It's not just me coming in and saying, we're doing it this way, or we need to do this. Because again,
that's confrontational. That's confrontation.
Yeah, and I don't know everything. I don't know probably like 1% of everything. So,
right.
They're here for a reason too. So like, this definitely needs to be a partnership and collaboration. But at the end of the day, we're evaluated on how we pitch, right? So it all needs to blend together to make our guys better pitchers. Right. And we need to look at it through that light. And man, when I first got to Lincoln Memorial, and this is going back a little bit, and there were some things that we were doing in the weight room that I wasn't a big fan of. I thought it put our guys at risk a little bit, but the strength coach was really adamant about it. And the head coach sat us both down, went over each side of the argument, I guess you'd say, and it was awesome. It was awesome in healthy conflict resolution. And he was like, we're going to do it this way because, again, the end result needs to be, we have to be good at baseball. Right. And so I look at it through that lens, but knowing how passionate strength coaches are, because it is a labor of love, right? Like strength coaches are stretched so thin, underpaid, right? For sure. And
absolutely.
So have to embrace that fact. But really want to make sure that we're working towards the same goal, and not everybody sees it, but pretty lucky to work with the guys that we do.
So let's talk a little bit about this tech that you've been using. I want to particularly talk about one thing that I think would be really a great 5-10 minute rant on. What I believe to be really, really important, that I know that you have come up here at my place and you've spent, Josh will sometimes, when he was in New Jersey, which I really miss, he would come up here for, 4 or 5 hours at a time and just bring a clipboard and a pen. And he would just hang out and ask questions and write down things. And I was like, wow, this is a guy that I want my kid to be coached by, So one thing that you really seem to embrace was you seem to embrace how we measured elasticity in our athletes, and how we decide who needs different levels of plyometrics based on how well they used their stretch shortening cycle. In order to make this less to make this less complicated, some guys rely on their muscular force to create power, and some guys are just really fast twitch and springy. And those guys that are really fast twitch and springy, if they do it correctly, they do have a little bit more of an advantage because they don't have to overuse their body, because they actually can use their stretch shortening cycle better and pull that slingshot back a little bit more. And I use a concept with a jump mat where I test a CMJ jump, a squat jump, a CMJ jump being a jump like if you're going up for a rebound, down and up as quick as you can, a squat jump where we squat for 3 seconds and we hold. And by comparing those two jumps, the CMJ uses a stretch shortening cycle, and the squat jump, all that heat dissipates out of the joints and out of the hips as you hold that 3-second squat. So now your jump is pretty much 100% muscular force, whereas the CMJ jump is using that elastic rubber band that we talk about. And the third one we use is a lateral RSI, which combines how quickly you get off the mat, like you're coming down the mound sideways, and how far you jump, and it creates a number. And that gives us, those 3 tests give us a phase 1, a phase 2, a phase 3, or a phase 4 plyometric that we put our athletes in, because giving everybody the same plyometric at tryouts or in your training session, for guys that are in a phase 1 and they're trying to do a phase 3, all they're really doing is they're doing their plyometrics wrong and poorly. They're not getting anything out of it. Matter of fact, they're learning how to move worse. So let's talk a little bit about, from my communications with you over the years, you've continued to reach out not only from the mechanics side of things, but from the strength and power programming. Tell us a little bit about how you've begun to implement the parameters that I just spoke about in your program. Let's start with that lower half power testing with the jump mat.
Yeah, so we were fortunate. We have a couple of jump mats here at Richmond, and so
not to interrupt you, but a jump mat, you can get a jump mat for about $500-600. It's I will let Josh tell you, but it is an invaluable, as you're going to hear him talk about, is an invaluable tool for $500.
No doubt, it really is. And not only is it an invaluable tool to train guys, but man, I'm so big into the mental side of everything. I'm the product of a child psychologist and a psychiatric social worker. So those are my parents, and that's a little messed up in the head.
Scanners,
but just the overall motivational side of it. So you test guys originally for the first time, and they see their scores and they see the numbers, and you talk to them a little bit about what it means, and they forget about what it means. But you do it, 2, 3, 4 weeks later. And if they see improvements in there, they're all in, right? Or they don't see any improvement, or they see less of an improvement than their roommate or their buddy, and they want to get after it even more, right? So from that psychological standpoint, I think it's huge. And that's why one of the reasons why measuring everything is super important. But from a practical standpoint, right, I think one of the greatest things that we've talked about, and it was after at the coaches convention this year in Virginia when we went to dinner, and you were talking about how it can ultimately help you determine the proper weight a guy should be at, right? And that's always a question, right? Because there's that mass equals gas idea, which you see in the bigs. I think we talk about the number height or body weight in pounds divided by height in inches, and it should be a specific number. And the guys that in Major League Baseball in 2019 that were 96 miles an hour on average on fastball or better, that number was 2.82, I believe.
Yeah, 2.8.
Yeah, and so now, so we want to gain weight, but again, there's that whole idea of it's got to be good weight, right? It can't just be, you can't just eat, Fritos and Doritos and everything and expect to throw harder.
Yeah, if you look at a 200-pound athlete that is 25% body fat, and you look at a 200-pound athlete that is 14% body fat, and you look at those two people standing side by side, the guy with 25% body fat looks like he's about 30 pounds heavier than the guy next to him, and they weigh the exact same amount.
It's wild. And so we need to determine how much a guy should weigh, and what you were talking about when you talk about, if they're gaining weight and their power numbers are going up, then they can continue to gain some weight. If their power plateaus, then they're probably at a decent weight, right?
Right. So to explain that a little bit, to expand upon what Josh is talking about right there. A lot of times I have a guy, he's, okay, let's just say he's 6'2", he's 74 inches. And he's like, okay, if wants to be 2.5 times his height in inches, he's X amount. So he's like, okay, am I supposed to be 195? Am I supposed to be 200, 190? These guys, you start talking to them about it and they want to know, okay, what exact weight should I be? I'm like, dude, I don't know. I mean, you could be at a different weight and be feeling really good and be producing better that day. But for the most part, it's called diminishing returns. What happens is, okay, you're at 195. Let's lift. Let's put on healthy weight. Okay, now you're at 198, and all your jumps and all your power metrics based off of your body weight and your height you're jumping are going up. 198 seems to be good. 200, wow, power metrics went up. 203, power metrics went down. Okay, so if we stay at 203, 202 for another couple of weeks and power metrics do not go up, we know that you may have reached diminishing returns. And 200 pounds seems to be where you peak at. So we lose 3 pounds now. Now we're telling you to lose weight, right? So now you get to 200 pounds. That jump mat tells us that you're at peak power again. That means you're carrying less baggage. You're getting rid of the baggage and you're keeping what's useful to you. In other words, muscle.
Right. And that weight is so important during a college baseball season, because I'm sure the kids that you train that come back will always talk about that they're going to lose 10 or 15 pounds during the season.
They look like a runaway dog sometimes after summer ball. It's
brutal.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, they're surviving on hot dogs, peanut butter sandwiches.
They come back in August after summer ball and they walk in. I'm like, what happened to you? You can play baseball in like a month.
Yeah,
you look like Bambi. It's like, what are you going to do? I can't do anything with this right now.
Yeah.
Why didn't you lift while you were there? And that's because some of these guys are in fucking Vermont. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's what are they going to do?
Yeah. So it helps them take initiative. Like, okay, so rather than accepting that they're going to lose weight, well, now they know it's not theoretical that, okay, if I lose weight, I'm going to lose velocity or lose power, whatever. Now they know that it's actually going to happen, right? They've seen their power numbers go down, or they've seen their power numbers go up when they're at 200 pounds, hypothetically, right? So, again, the psychological side is huge. And then from just how it translates to the field, I mean, it's obvious, right? The more powerful you are and the better you move, as long as there's not a hitch in the chain, the ball's going to come out better.
And I have honestly, as I sit here right now, I have found this concept over the last 20 years to continuously almost always be flawless. It's almost, people can say whatever they want. Yes, you can throw 95 miles an hour and you can be 165 pounds. And you can also be an outlier, because I will tell you 9 out of 10 guys who throw 93 miles an hour and are 165 pounds will not be throwing 93 miles an hour for very long. And that's just from what I've seen and what I know. And we can talk about Walker Buehler and we could talk about guys like that. And yes, there are guys like that, but I've got guys in my gym right now that are throwing in the 90s, seniors in high school. And I got a guy that's 6'2" right now. He's 165 pounds. And I'm like, please, dude, listen, man, you're getting ready to go to a really great school. Pick up a knife and fork and start eating, up your good calories. But, and then once we do find these guys who score high, these guys that need to get more elastic, okay, who score low on their plyometrics, they get lower plyometrics. So do you find about organizing these guys in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Just for our listeners, a phase 1 plyometric is a kid who, once he lands on the ground, it looks like it takes him an hour before he makes a move. Okay. He really can't decelerate his body. His eccentric strength is low. That's a phase 1 guy. We need to teach this kid how to get stronger eccentrically and how to land with his landing mechanics better. Phase 2 is a guy who needs to actually create stiffer joint movements with faster plyometrics and quick ground contact times. Phase 3 guys are the average, really higher level athletes who score high on their lateral RSI. We don't have time to go into that. That's a whole nother podcast that maybe I'll do on my own. But we break these guys down. We can't have a kid who can't land doing hide-ins, because that's what we're doing this week in the weight room. I mean, you're doing this kid a disservice. And we can't start with phase 1 plyometrics with everybody, because when you're dealing with higher level athletes, most of these kids are already very fast twitch and very elastic, and having them sitting there and learn how to land is wasting their time. Okay. So have you found that organizing your guys in these groups based off of their ability has been effective? What are the biggest changes you've noticed? Like, have you found that it helps?
Yeah, for sure. Especially the lower end guys, because we'll get, at least we have over the years, a lot of guys with good arms that land poorly. Right. And if that's one of the biggest pieces of low hanging fruit. If you can get them to land better,
of course,
you'll watch the velocity spike, and you'll watch their arms feel better because they're using less of their arm to slow themselves down. Right. So,
right.
That's almost, getting back in the recruiting side. If we're taking a project, a kid who doesn't land well, but has a pretty good arm, like that's an interesting one, because
that's a danger.
It's a danger, but if you could teach, you take the fall and you're like, okay, we're not going to throw very much. We're going to really work on landing. And actually we have, he was a walk-on freshman this past year. Nobody really expected anything. He was that kid. He's tall. He's not a string bean, but he's not strong by any measure of the equation. He was, anywhere from like 79 to 80, 81, threw a ton of strikes from Florida, good breaking ball, good enough breaking ball. But man, could not land, right? Didn't throw very much this year.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This showed up in his jump testing.
Oh yeah.
Right. And think about what you're saying right now. Just the fact that a pitching coach is saying, I had a kid who threw really well, but couldn't land well. So we're not going to throw a lot. We're going to work on your landing. Come on, man. That is some forward thinking stuff, man. I love it. Keep going.
If you give me a minute, I could pull up his actual power numbers from the first time we tested and everything. But that's what we want to work on. And with an iPhone now, you can take video and you can really show them, like, this is how this manifests down the mountain, right? Your knee is buckling, it's going to the side, right? Like everything
spinning off.
And so my worry is, again, if you get really strong and you start throwing significantly harder, you're going to break down, right? So before we do that, you need to do this. And so using a lot of the techniques and everything that you've given me and that I've watched and read and all of that stuff. And he went to work, man. He really went to work, and now he's playing. He's actually playing in the Cressy League down in Florida. And yesterday he went like 7 innings and just dominated. And it's starting to all come together. And he's now 82, 84. He'll bump an 86 here and there. And now he can get strong, right? Now he kind of knows how to land, and now he can get like really physically strong, and we'll throw more, and we'll see where it goes. But you can really go to work, and a lot of times, like that's so much fun, especially when a kid knows that he needs to get better at it.
Yeah, that's great. So this has been absolutely amazing. I always loved talking to you. I really respect you for how much you draw from all the different methodologies of training, whether it's mechanics, whether it's strength, whether it's energy system work or nutrition. I always really I love talking to you. I miss you being up here, But I just will say that Josh, I get at least 2 or 3 calls from Josh. Josh will call me sometimes with a question that I have to go look up. Like he asked me, I got this kid, and he'll mention something. I'll go, Josh, you know what? I don't really think I know what that is, but I'm going to go look that up and I'm going to give you an answer. So it's really great how you stay on top of things. And thanks for talking with us today, man. I wish you the best at Richmond. They've got a great guy there right now that's hopefully bringing a lot of new stuff.
Well, thank you, and thank you for everything. Obviously, this podcast is just the next in line of how helpful you are to the entire baseball community, right? And
I love it, man.
I think your willingness to share everything really sets you apart, man. It's awesome, and I'm really only as good as the information I can get from you and everybody else. And so
right.
Thank you. And this is awesome. Obviously, always love breaking it down.
Hey, listen, man, if you have questions about that, if you have questions, if you're a pitching coach and you have questions about any of these things, I would encourage you to reach out to Josh, because I can talk to you about it, but Josh can talk to you about it from a pitching side. He's already deciphered and asked all the questions of me that he doesn't understand. So he might be able to understand it. Mine might get a little confusing. Josh, how can somebody reach you?
Yeah, I'll give you, so best way is email jepstein@richmond.edu. Second best way, I think, would be Twitter, just DM at Josh Epstein 22.
Great. And
best ways.
And you can reach out to me at Nunzio Signore on Twitter, or at RPP _baseball for the RPP, my facilities Twitter and Instagram feed. You can also reach out to us on our website at www.rocklandpeakperformance.com, and check out my book, Velocity-Based Training, How to Apply Science and Technology to Maximize Performance. You can get it on Amazon. Thanks for tuning in to Behind the Seams. We'd like to thank Josh. See you on the next time around.